Yes. Hello, and welcome to another fine episode of my own personal rants, where I just, well, rant about things. So, today's topic kind of centers around friendships and their fragility at times, and how it can affect me as a person, themselves potentially, and also how it can bleed into some other things too. So, I have I just feel like over the years, the friendships I hold are very polarizing. And what I mean by that is I feel that, like, the friendships I've had for a while, and usually these are ones I've had for several years, are usually pretty strong. They have a very definite, deep rooted aspect to them. And then there's ones that I haven't had as long, and it feels like those usually fade away pretty quickly. Now, I think on the one hand, this is kind of expected and something that's not fully realized until a long period of time has passed. But it just seems that finding some quality friendships can be pretty challenging these days. And I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it certainly has been difficult. Some of the things I've observed lately is that I remember there was a time where I could very easily play games and stuff like that with other people that I knew. And it seems these days it's very difficult, which is interesting considering, well, we have all these games. There's even more people that have, accessibility to, computers and more open to video games and entertainment and stuff like that. But I think the other problem with that is that because there's so many games, it can be difficult to put really just bring people together. Because in the early days, you had a much more limited library of games, and therefore the likelihood of people having similar games was all the more likely. Whereas now, because there's so many out there, it's a little less. And usually it's the whole question of, well, XYZ games come out, and then it's like, well, is it really worth my time? Because every game is an investment, even if it's cheap, even if it's like some $5 or whatever, it's still money and time that you're throwing out there with the chance of hoping that it will have some kind of staying power. And that's the other thing too, is it feels like people just jump on the game and play for a while, and then it's just like it never happened. They just very seldom go back to it. They just go to the next cool thing that's out there and just don't really take the time to appreciate games that have just been around for a bit. And I don't feel that there's anything wrong with these games. Like, some of these games have some definite longevity or solid elements to them that make them just enjoyable to just kind of dig into whenever. At again, just it feels like some just always want to chase that white whale and just try to find that next best thing, or at least what seems like the next best thing or the next cool thing, and then it just gets exhausting. But yeah, so I guess there's quite a few elements there. So the whole vastness of games, meaning the likelihood of having common games between one another, can be difficult at times. There's that whole chasing the white whale thing, grass always green on the other side, like playing a game for a time until just something new and shiny comes around, then you just jump on that. And not everyone wants to do that, and certainly I don't want to either. Um, and it's not like it's always like unwarranted. Sometimes, yeah, it's nice to get something that's a little different or whatever. But I think there's a difference between like jumping on something for a bit for the sake of, doing something a little fresh and new, and and then just doing it for a while, but then like never looking back at all other stuff. And that's where I tend to have issue. Um, Now, I think this is kind of why, not like the only reason, but I feel like this is kind of the reason, or at least, like I said, one of them that caused me to get into board gaming. Because, at least with board games, one person has to get it, and then they can have, anyone just join in on that. It's not like you have to have, everyone has to have their own copy of the board game to play. Although there's pretty rare exceptions to that, but they're very, very like niche things, like, or they're just not very common. Usually, when you get a board game, it's something that everyone can just play, or at least a set number of players, because that can be a thing too. But regardless, point being, board games tend to be a lot more accessible for that reason. The only restriction of board games, of course, is they tend to be, well, restricted to locality, because you can only play board games if you actually live in the same vicinity. Now, of course, there are ways around this, such as with Tabletop Simulator or Tabletop Playground, or board games that just happen to have their own digital versions that straight up function as is, that can allow people to come together over great distances and play board games. And that's great too. And the similar principle kind of stands there too. Only, of course, everyone does have to have their own copy of the game at that point, or Tabletop Simulator, or Tabletop Playground, or what have you. But the nice thing about things like Tabletop Playground or Tabletop Simulator is that it's a pretty reasonable purchase, and you have access to a lot of games. And even some of those they're paid for are usually pretty cheap, comparable to their cardboard analogs. Now, I've been doing board gaming for quite some time. I've been hosting board gaming probably since around, I want to say like 2008 was when I really started to get seriously into board gaming. And the interesting thing is, at first I wasn't really into it because I felt it was just kind of a waste of time. Because keep in mind, I was used to playing PC games for the most part. So, like, the concept of a board game just felt a lot slower, more cumbersome. But over time, I learned to appreciate those aspects of board gaming, and how it definitely allowed for much more player interaction that felt a lot more personable, because you're there in person, or at least as close as you can be if you're doing it on Tabletop Simulator, for example. The other thing too was that this became a pretty like serious hobby of mine. I have well over 100 different unique titles in our collection, and each one presents its own ecosystem of possibility as far as theme, mechanics, and all sorts of other variables that make it what it is. And for a while there, I was hosting a lot of board gaming nights. It was not too, actually, there was one time I was hosting 3 board game nights a week, which is a lot, and that was great. And then eventually I ended up kind of losing participants on Friday, because I would have a day on Wednesday for a little bit, usually for like a few hours. I'd have a nice full evening on Friday, and then usually a nice full day throughout the evening on Saturday. So it was plenty of board gaming. But eventually, like, a lot of people that come over Friday kind of just couldn't really make it anymore for whatever reason. So eventually just got to the point where I just dropped Fridays, and then even Wednesdays eventually just kind of dropped too, where I just ended up having a once per week thing, which was okay. Once per week is still quite plenty. Um, but I for a while there, it was for the last few years or so, it was something that I would do a day thing of, from like 2 or 3 all the way up until like 6 or 7 or so. And then that's where we'd have like in our evening games, where usually there would be other people that come over around that time. And usually this is where some of the day people would go back home because they were done for the day. So it's almost like having two shifts of board gaming on Saturday, and that was pretty nice. But uh, it just lately it's been very difficult for me to get people together, and I don't know why. Um, there's literally no communication from anybody as to why. But this kind of goes hand in hand with the whole thing I wanted to talk about as far as just reliability of people and friends and how they can really impact things over time, especially if it's just, it's one thing to fuck up or do something wrong or whatever, every once in a blue moon, because we're not perfect, and that's okay. Especially if we're willing to find ways to forgive and make amends, because that's what friends should do. But it's another thing when you just flake out like repeatedly or practically all the time, or you just kind of disappear or whatever, and there's no rhyme or reason why, and it's just like, okay, well, what what do I make of that? I can't make anything of that. All I can do is speculate, and speculating only does so much because you're just guessing at that point. I don't know. I'm not sure what happened. Something I did? Were the games we were playing not great? Was the atmosphere lacking? Was my coffee bad? People always love my coffee. Hmm. Probably not that. Um, but yeah, it's gotten to the point where only like very few attend my board gaming anymore. Um, Playing PC games is difficult to find others to play with. Um, I remember when these things used to be so much easier, and it just seems like I've been really struggling with that lately. And it affects me because, I don't, and I mean this wholeheartedly. I've said this so many times, but I feel like I just can't say it enough because I think sometimes maybe I come across wrong or something, or I don't know. But I never mean ill or anything to anybody. No matter how I feel about you, even if I hate you, it's not in me to like want to cause harm um or to hurt feelings or anything like that. It's just not who I am. And if I do it, it's just by accident, unfortunately, and that can happen. Um, I'm not. It's never with intent. Basically, is the short of it. But you know, I get it. Maybe I do something that just is abrasive or misinterpreted, and yeah, I get it. That can cause some some hurt or whatever. But I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if maybe people just kind of drop from my life because they just feel like I did something wrong, or maybe it's just a natural separation of just life catching up, or they just feel they don't connect with me anymore, or whatever. But I guess it's one thing to say that if it's just somebody I just casually know, and sure, I get it. I don't. I would kind of expect there for that to be the possibility to happen, but then it's another thing. Like if you're like someone I've known for a while, or particularly close with, and that's just like, well, then it makes me feel kind of shitty because I'm just sitting there wondering if I did something wrong or what. But I try to give it the benefit of the doubt. I don't know, but I feel this is where communication is really important, And if you're not gonna, if there's something wrong or something's going on, let me know. Like, it's one thing if you're an acquaintance. Sure, I, I understand you don't really owe me that. We barely know each other. But if we've been friends for some time, or if we're particularly close, I feel like, almost required to offer me that decency. Because, well, we're in each other's lives. Like, it, I don't understand. Like, I know if I feel something's going on in my life that could potentially impact some people, I want to let them know. So that way they don't worry or concern themselves or second guess as to what's going on, because that's terrible to leave people just to their own devices to figure stuff out. It's not good at all. But yeah, um, so that's kind of where I've been lately. Um, Thankfully, though, there are a few people that will get together and do some PC gaming with me from time to time. And if you are one of those people that happens to be watching, I can't thank you enough for that. And this goes also to those who attend my board gaming regularly. Even though it's not very many of you, know that I appreciate you immensely for supporting me and being there for me and giving me your time and appreciation for what I do, because I don't have to do any of this. You know, I don't have to facilitate my time, my energy, and my love and passion for board gaming or anything like that just so I can help people come into it themselves and enjoy it without having to, pick up that weight themselves. I do most of it. I learn the game. I look through the rules. I help teach it. I help people understand and give them the opportunity to learn and just play with it and just see what they can do with it. I make coffees. I try to give people services and stuff like that to make them feel welcome. And I don't know. I'm I'm just honestly trying to do everything I can within my capacity to make, as pleasant an experience as possible. And if I haven't done that, I'm sorry. I just I don't know. But if I have failed in that, I haven't been informed of it otherwise. So this is just me speculating because again, I don't know what's going on. I'm hoping it's just not on my end. But if it is, I'd like to know. So that way I can see if there's something I can do to improve that. I can't promise I will, but, you know, if I at least know, then we'll see. I don't know. This goes for anything too, not just for the sake of gaming, but just hanging out, whether it's in real life or VR chat or I I don't know. I always felt I was okay. I'm not a amazing person, although some people will probably say otherwise. But I'd like to think I'm not like anyone terrible or anything like that. I'm okay. That's fine. Um, I've got my quirks and little faults here and there, but I've worked on making those not to be too much of an issue. And I wish there were some things I could still refine a little bit more, and I'll continue to work on that because as a person, you're always growing, always learning, never stopping. But But yeah, it's also been a bit of a challenge on things like VR chat as well. People just seem so flightly there at times, and I get it. You have a font. You have accessibility to so many faces, so it's easy to just sort of if you feel an interaction isn't working out, just move on to something else. Easy peasy. But I don't know. I felt there was some potential avenues there that just sadly just don't want to have anything to do with me apparently. And it's just like, great. Well, so much for that. Eh. And it it's kind of made me feel the same way too. Like to look at friendships kind of the same way. It's just like, well, I've barely known this person for a few months and they just don't reciprocate my energy despite, you know, how often I join on them or say hello. Waste my time. Bye. It's kind of bad in a way, but I just I'm not wasting time. Now, obviously, I wouldn't do this with people that I've known for a while because we've built a bond. We have deep roots with each other. You know, you can't just throw them away that easily. But people that I've only known for a little while, that's a lot easier to do because, well, they're just that's just not there. So if you're not giving me signs that you're willing to help this friendship grow into anything more, I'm wasting my time. Bye. I'm not gonna put any more energy into that. And I feel that's unfortunate in a way, but it's kind of the state of things. And sometimes I wonder if maybe that's why certain other people I know kind of stop talking to me or just seem to move away. They kind of feel the same way. But again, I wouldn't know that. But I can speculate that if it's been like a short term relationship, I can only assume that. So, in that sense, that's fine. But it's really an issue, though, if it's someone I've known for a while. Because then that definitely signals a problem. And I just won't know what that is because, again, it just seems like I very seldom get informed as to why. Now, I have a friend. I have a friend that, and I appreciate them immensely for this because holy shit, not many people do this. But going back to the board gaming situation, this is more of an issue with my online board gaming. I probably have about 20 some people in my board gaming Discord server last time I checked, somewhere around there. And I maybe see only like four, maybe five of those people regularly. Like everyone else, I either have very rarely seen join in or they just never have. And I'm just like, why? Like, why are you even here if you're just not going to do anything? Like, this server isn't just something to just fuck around in, it's specifically for this purpose. You joined here with that understanding, and yet you just don't do anything. It's just so ridiculous. Um, but anyway, what I wanted to mention with this is that one of those friends that hadn't been joining games for a while had the decency to be like, hey, just so you know, I just haven't been feeling like board games lately. I don't know when I will again, but do you think it would be best if I just, leave the server for now just so like that expectation of me being there is a a sign that, I'll eventually join. I'm like, you know what? That's unfortunate to hear that you're just not feeling board games lately, but the fact that you're willing to come up and tell me that that's the case, I have such huge respect for. You've provided explanation and clarity to something that was clearly becoming a trend, and great. I can acknowledge that. I can understand that. Now I can move on, knowing that that's the case. That's amazing. Everyone else, though, that has had a similar situation, well, crickets, nothing. People just don't want to take the time to communicate these things with me. Except in rare situations like that, which, again, I appreciate so much. I want to make it clear that I am pretty approachable about these things, but you just need to set the expectation with me that this is a matter that you want to talk to me about regarding us, our friendship, or our situation. And as long as I'm aware of that, I'm usually good to go. And I'm going to approach it with an open mind and try to understand what's going on. And sure, depending on the nature of things, maybe I'll be a bit, you know, upset or whatever. But I'm going to respect you immensely because you found it in yourself to be willing to communicate those concerns or whatever with me. And now, because of that, we can potentially work on that, grow from it, something, find some kind of resolve, or at least a closure. Not just leaving it out there for just to be wound up in speculation and uncertainty. And I face this all too often. But thankfully, not all the time. Because there have been some great people out there that I have been fortunate to have in my life. And again, I really can't thank you enough for being a part of my life and giving me that respect that you do. Because I'm going to give it back in any way that I can and share and reciprocate that because you deserve it. We both do at that point. I just don't understand why this has to be such a hard thing. I really don't. I, I feel people kind of treat friendships like just like those PC games I was talking about earlier. They just get the shiny new friendship, they enjoy it for a little bit, and then they just get tired of it for some reason, and then they just never look back at it. No closure, no real great reason why offer. Just I'm done with this. Cool, thanks. You should have just had me on rental instead or something. Probably did actually. Hmm. I'm not gonna say I'm perfect either. I've probably had my share of just having other people feel the same way as I do right now. Um, but I try to minimize that as much as possible. I try to make it not be a thing. But and I think for the most part, yeah, it's not something that really comes up too often at all. So I'm thankful for that. But at the very least, if I feel I've done something wrong and it's an important friendship to me, I'm gonna reach out and be like, hey, what's going on? Why is this happening? Yeah, I didn't think this was gonna be. Let's see. Yeah, I didn't think this was gonna be too long of a video because the subject matter is pretty straightforward. It's not anything too crazy. I'm gonna go too much into depth, but it is something that's been on my mind, and I just don't know how to feel about it. But yeah, in short, I have my hobbies, and I've got my friends. And the thing is that some of those hobbies rely on having friends, and when those friends just can't respect my time and what I do to make those hobbies a thing, it just it's a bit of a double whammy because not only do I feel like the friendship is just not there, but well, you're certainly not there to participate in the hobby either. And that just really isn't fun. So that's kind of why I've been seeking other hobbies like film production, sadly. Because at least there I don't necessarily need people. I mean, there have been some rare occasions where I have, but I'm just a one man team, and so be it. I can just do all this shit myself. I enjoy it. I've done some incredible things with it. I'm going to continue to make some incredible things with it and continue to grow with that. So be it. And I'm not going to say I'm necessarily giving up on my other hobbies like my PC gaming, board gaming. Those mean a lot to me. And I still have quite a few people to share that with. But my God, that kind of scares me in a way because what if those people are not around someday? I'm going to have to really struggle to find some new ones that would replace that. And that's not going to be an easy thing at all. Or it's going to just turn inward and I'm going to end up doing more by myself, which it's viable, but it's not the same. It really isn't. I just have invested a lot of time and money into these things, and I just want to share that with other people. I I don't I'm not expecting much back other than just to be there. Give me your time and just well, I guess we'll see what happens. Like I said, I don't get to PC game very often, and board gaming I only do usually just once a week, and I may get like a couple of people that come over, and that's about it. It's better than nothing, but I used to get a pretty decent amount of people, and it's just been, it's really been happening. And interestingly enough, I stopped doing online board gaming for a time because it felt like it was very challenging to get people together for it. So, and plus, I was doing a lot more in real life anyway. And now it just feels like I have to try to find it more online because I'm just not getting it enough here. And even that's still proving to be challenging as it has before. And I just do not understand why. I honestly feel like I'm pulling teeth half the time. It's It just should not be this difficult. And I'm just tired of going through friends like a fucking shopping list. I mean, I always say that people come and go in my life, but my God, it just feels like such a revolving door. Very seldom are there ones that stay. And no wonder it's been so hard for me to find a relationship or anything like that too. Although at this point, I've kind of given up on the prospect of a relationship, or at least just like, well, to clarify, like I'm like okay with like a companionship, you know, someone that's obviously we're there for each other in our lives, but there's no like commitment or anything. Like there's no definitive like yeah we're together kind of thing. It's more like well we're just here and just kind of do that. I don't know. And if it grows into something more than that, great. If not, that's okay too. It just gets lonely. And I think that's the other thing that makes it difficult too is like if I had at least someone in my life that could at least share some of these things with me, it wouldn't hit as hard. It wouldn't feel as bad because I could at least always sort of fall back to that. Although I don't want to make it sound like they're a fallback, but it's more like the fact that, like, at least if things go awry, they're always my baseline, you know? They're always there for me. It's a nice feeling. But I really don't have a lot of that. Boy, I just really need to find more people that just share and understand my passions and I can just spend time with. And at this point, I feel like I'm just going around in circles. In fact, I pretty much am. I guess that's definitely a sign that it's something that's recurring and has been affecting me for a while. And I'm finding a hard time finding a resolution to. So, of course, it's going to do that as a result. And that's why I kind of find myself a bit more in VR chat lately, too. At least there's some connection to be had here with some people. I just want someone to just love and cuddle up with. Have some good times, memories, experiences. Just always I'm asking for too much, I guess. So, I guess we can kind of wrap this up by just me stating treat your friends with respect. Communication is always key. Don't leave your friends in the dark. Like, it's again, it's one thing if they're just like an acquaintance and you don't really know them, that's fine. That's whatever. But if there's someone you've known for a while and you're close to, the least you can do is like if something's going on or if you feel there's an issue or something that just needs to be brought to attention, bring it to their attention. Even if you are concerned it could be hurtful or upsetting, maybe it will be initially, but they're going to respect you a hell of a lot more for that because you were able to come to them and express this concern or whatever it is versus just letting it be on the back burner or just set aside where it just festers. And that's where it really gets bad. And it would hurt a lot worse at that point. And even Phil's, you know, person with resentment or loses trust, and then at that point, well, that friendship is pretty much on ice, if not potentially damaged. Whereas at least you actually reach out, you're probably going to preserve it. Because again, it reinforces that trust and the understanding. Spend time with your friends. We only have so little of it on this earth. Try to understand that having a friends list of only like 1 or 200 people that you know and are pretty close to is going to be a lot more reasonable than having over 1,000 of which yeah, you may have some close friends on there, but ultimately, you don't know. Oh, you may have met this person once, like 5 months ago, and then never again. What do you know about them? What do they know about you? Probably next to nothing. Are they really a friend? Could you call this person at 6 o'clock in the morning and ask them to give you a ride because you got yourself in a rut? They probably won't give a shit about you. Or is this person known for 10 years and you've spent time with each other regularly and have grown so many memories and trust with one another? They're probably going to be there for you in a heartbeat because they love and respect you that much. Quality over quantity any day when it comes to friendships. Now, even 100 and 200 is a lot, but comparatively to like some people that I've seen that keep like such an absurd amount of number of people on their friends list, especially on here in VR chat, no, those aren't your friends. The heart can only give a shit about so many people. I think I've kind of described this before, but the heart has rings around it, and the further out you go, the larger those rings are. So each ring represents how close a person is to you. So you have like, usually the closest ring is like, partners, lovers, things like that. Those are going to be especially close to you. And then you have things like, maybe good friends, close friends. Those are going to be a little further out, but still pretty close. And then you have like, friends. They're not particularly close, but you know them pretty well. And then you have acquaintances. It's in a much larger ring. So with that, the closer people are to you, the smaller that ring is, which means the fewer people you can fit in that ring. It's easy to have a bunch of acquaintances because you don't really know a lot about them. You're not that particularly close to them versus like people that you're really close to. Because the people that you're really close to, you tend to invest the most amount of time and energy into. And because of that, that doesn't leave you a lot of energy for other people. It's easier to have a little less energy for, say, like just regular friends because you see them periodically, or you're just not as much investment into them. So the heart only gives a shit about so many people, and it's a balancing act. You have to really decide who is going to be where and who is actually going to be part of that. Because if you have too much, it's going to be overwhelming, it's going to be exhausting, and it's just not going to do well for your mental well being, which can translate into your physical well being too. But if you have just the right amount, it's going to do you well. So, just some things to think about. And if by chance you're watching and you are curious about board gaming and stuff like that, and you do want to join in for sessions or anything like that, feel free to reach out to me on here or any of my socials. I'm known as Arctasha pretty much anywhere. I'm pretty easy to find. Um, and I'm the kind of person that is more than willing to sit down and teach games and show you the ropes and help you learn and give you the room that you need to do that and experiment, have fun, just see how things are, feel it out, whatever. So, absolutely. Because right now, I could really use some folks. So, all you need is tabletop simulator or tabletop playground. Though usually most of it's on simulator, but they do have both platforms. And I guess I'll leave it at that. Eh, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'll just leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Because usually people that stick around this long are probably the only ones that really give a shit about me. Or at least are just morbidly curious. I don't know. But either way, I'll see you around next time. Much love. Take care.